Hi, I'm Cliff Doyle. Thanks for tuning in to 10 Minutes with Boston Chris podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another fabulous episode of the 10 Minutes with Boston Chris podcast. I am your host, Boston Chris, and this week, golly, we have another amazing guest here on the show. I'm so excited to introduce you guys to singer-songwriter extraordinaire Marty Dotson. Let me tell you a little bit about Marty. Marty Dotson was born in Apple Valley, California. His family moved around for several years before settling in Nashville, Tennessee when he was 5 years old. He's always loved music, but he was intimidated by the sheer number of people he encountered growing up that were not succeeding in the music business. So he went to college, got a degree in psychology, and worked in another career for 10 years. At that point, he decided he had to try his dream of being a professional songwriter. Now, it took several years of writing for free before he landed his first publishing deal with Kim Williams and Sony ATV in Nashville. Several years after that, Rascal Flatts recorded While You Loved Me, and he had his first top 10 single. Another 3 years went by before Billy Currington, Jason Matthews, and Marty had their first number one single with Must Be Doing Something Right. Now, people often ask him what his favorite song is that he's written. He's very proud of the 6 number one singles. He's thrilled that several iconic artists have recorded his songs, from Joe Cocker to Leon Russell, the Oak Ridge Boys, just to name a few. He's proud of his song Bounce for knocking Psy out of the number one spot on the K-pop chart in Korea, and for winning Asian Song of the Year that year. And he's proud of his Plain White Tees and Saving Jane cuts because they are off the beaten path for a Nashville writer. But his favorite songs have yet to be recorded. Just ask him sometime and he'll play a couple of them for you. It's been a long, hard journey with considerable costs, but in the end, it has been worth it. He wakes up every day and gets to do something he loves, and you can't put a price on that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited to bring you a candid conversation with Marty Dotson. Y'all check it out. Hey guys, welcome to another fabulous episode of the 10 Minutes with Boston Chris podcast. And today we have a huge treat for everybody out there. It is the one and only from Songtown, USA. Marty Dotson is in the house. Appreciate all your time and effort today, Marty. How you been?
I've been good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first question, just to break the ice a little bit, what's your favorite drink right now?
Um, actually, I really love this Lagunitas hoppy water that I'm drinking right now.
Very nice. What exactly is that? Is it like sparkling water or?
Yeah, it's like sparkling water, but it has hops in it.
Ooh,
So,
so like beer and water
yeah,
mixed.
yeah. Except there's no alcohol in it; it's just water with hops.
Very cool, very cool. All right, so we'll start right at the beginning. So you were born in California, but don't really probably remember much about that because your family kind of moved you east when you were real young. And so they brought you to Nashville. And looking back as a fan of yours, that seems pretty fitting to me, knowing what transpired after that. Can you tell us what your first memories were involving music?
Um, so when I was um in elementary school, I got asked if I wanted to be in band, and so I did because all of the a lot of the cute girls in my grade were in band. So that's what led me to band. So I learned in fifth and sixth grade. I learned to read music, learned to play an instrument. Um, and then when I was 11, I got my first guitar, and that's when I started writing songs. So I found a spot on the steps going down to our basement that had great reverb,
Hmm.
so it kind of echoed in there. So I would sit on that step and write my songs, and that was kind of my intro to that.
So you were already being an engineer at like what, 9 or 10, just looking for the perfect
Yeah.
sound. Man,
Uh-huh.
it's crazy. Probably been chasing that perfect sound ever since, right?
I have, yeah.
So your dream growing up was obviously to be a professional songwriter, and that seemed to work out pretty well for you. But you said that the sheer number of people that you saw not succeeding in music in the Nashville area kind of steered you away from the music business at first. What did you do instead, and what were your initial goals after kind of putting that dream on hold?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even, I guess I was so intimidated by it. It wasn't really even a dream when I was growing up because I wasn't sure how you made a living as a songwriter or if you could. And then I saw, everybody that came to work on our cable was trying to be in the music business. Every waiter and waitress was trying to be in the music business. And I didn't see anybody succeeding at it. I didn't have any family members in the business. So I went to college, Lipscomb University in Nashville, and they had one commercial music class. So I thought, well, I'll take this and kind of explore whether it's possible, And the class was fun, but it was taught by a realtor. So he was a full-time realtor teaching the commercial music class.
That's funny.
And so again, I got the impression that's like, well, this is not really a real thing that you can do, and he kind of sang jingles on the side and stuff like that. So that was his connection to the business. But the class really discouraged me from pursuing it. So I just dropped it and got a degree in psychology. And when I was in college, I got offered a job as a youth minister. And so I did that during college. And then when I got out of college, they offered me like a full-time position. So I did that. And 10 years later, I woke up one day and was like, you know what? I never chose to be a youth minister. I just kept getting offered jobs to do it, and I enjoyed it and I think I was pretty good at it, but it wasn't something that I picked. It's just something I kind of fell into. So I read a book called What Color's Your Parachute that talks about learning to make a living from your passion. And when I read that book and I came to the conclusion that if I could have done anything, I would have been a songwriter. And so by then I'm like 31, 32, and
Wow.
I had a little more courage. So I kind of had an early midlife crisis and thought, I don't want to do the youth ministry stuff the rest of my life. And I want to try the songwriting and see if I can do it. So I knew one person. My dad was building PCs for people, and he had built a PC for this guy that was in the Crickets. He took Buddy Holly's place when Buddy Holly died. And so his name was Gordon Payne. So I got my courage up one day and I asked him when he was at my dad's house if he would listen to some of my songs. So I played him a couple songs and he really liked one of my ideas. And he helped me rewrite it and make it more commercial. And then he took me to a studio to demo it. And they played our work tape. We had it on a cassette. They play our work tape, and then all the musicians got up and left. And I was like, "Where are they going?" He said, "Well, they're going to go play our song." And I said, "Well, they just heard it one time." And he said, "Yeah, watch." And so they go into their ISO booths and everything, and they play our song almost flawlessly the first time. And I was like, "Okay, I've got to figure out how this system works,"
Yeah, it's magic. It's magic.
Yeah, I was hooked at that moment because I heard my song come into life and all these great musicians playing on it, and so that really inspired me. And I tried to become Gordon's new best friend and write with him all the time. And he was writing for Reba McEntire's company, and so he could not afford to spend every day with me. So he started hooking me up with people to kind of get me out of his hair, I think. And one of those people was a guy named Terry Vonderhyde, and it wound up we wrote really well together, and he wound up getting a deal with Sony, and they really liked what we did together, so that kind of led to my first deal as well.
So basically, life led you back to music. I mean, just living your life, and that passion never goes away. So we've all heard the term starving songwriter, of course. But in your first few years chasing or being back within music, what dues did you have to pay along the way to, like, before you really hit your first hit or your first cut or whatever?
Oh man. Well, so I did it for about 2 years before I got that first writing deal. So, that was pretty much writing every day that I could. My wife was working part-time and I was doing some odd jobs and trying to make ends meet. And so 2 years in, I get offered a deal, but my deal was making $866 a month. So I could not quite live on that.
So you became the cable
And
guy.
so, yeah. So I had to, keep doing my odd jobs. My wife kept working part time, and uh, then about 4 years into it was a 5 year deal, and about 4 years into that, I got what became my first single with Ricochet, and Ricochet called "Can't Stop Thinking About That," and it went to like 37. Um, so I didn't make any money. My publisher was recouping out of my
Right.
performance and my mechanical. So I didn't see any of that money. That all went to pay him back. And then in the 5th year of that deal, I got While You Love Me for Rascal Flatts, which went to number 7. So that recouped my deal, and then I started making some money.
I definitely want to talk about While You Loved Me too, because I've seen a couple of other interviews that you took part in, and I find the story behind the song here very not just consequential to your career, but also there's a lot of advice in the story behind this song. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This song came to be as kind of an ode to your grandmother originally. It was a different song, and it really only had relevancy to you. It was a very small sphere of who that song really resonated with. But it ended up being a top 7 hit. So tell us the steps that you took to go from not relevant to relevant, and why is relevancy so important in songwriting?
Yeah, that was a big lesson for me. So I had written this song called "She Stopped Living the Day He Died," which was about my grandmother. Because my grandfather died in his early 50s of a sudden heart attack, and she was kind of miserable and ornery the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And so, the song talked about, it had their names in it, it had where they worked. It was very, very specific. And I played it for my family. Of course, they all cry. They know, they knew them and everything. And oddly enough, my grandmother's name was Minnie Cooper, which later we tried to, get her one of those cars, but it did not work.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but I played it for my publisher, and his response was, "That's the saddest crap I've ever heard." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Nobody's going to want to sing that." And he said, "I'll tell you what I want you to do is go home, come back to me with what you think is the big universal emotion behind that song. And then let's see if we can write something that's more commercial." Um, because he said, "You have a really universal idea behind that song. You just wrote it too specifically to your story.
Hmm.
And you're not letting other people plug their story into it." So I went home and I thought about it, and I realized the universal idea was sometimes when you lose somebody, it feels like you died.
Hmm.
And so I came back to him with that, and he was like, "Okay, great. That's perfect. So now go come up with a title that would convey that in a more universal way." So I came back to him with that title, "While You Love Me." Um, Basically, I was born the day you kissed me. I died inside the night you left me, but I lived while you loved me.
Hmm.
And I told him that, and he was like, "Okay, we can have a hit with that." So we wrote that with Danny Wells. Kim Williams was my publisher. We wrote that with Danny Wells, and it became that first top 10 hit.
And just a remarkable story. I just wanted to catch that here on the show because I love how songwriters evolve over time, within their training, their process, their technique, all of those things. It's always interesting to me to hear about the nuts and bolts of not just a specific song, but the things that you can clearly see that happened after that song came as a hit. Um, so
Mhm.
you mentioned it was a few years before you really got your first hit. 4 years, I think you said. So what things were you doing in the meantime to try to kind of own your craft and become better as a songwriter?
I was doing everything I could possibly think of to do. So Kim, that was my publisher, he became a Hall of Fame songwriter. He had been on 100 million records and was in the height of Garth mania when I joined him, so he was getting Garth cut after Garth cut. So just, I would pick his brain. He would mentor me on my songs and show me how to make them better. But I would, when I had free time, I was reading every book that I could read on songwriting. He had a big CD player that had like 100 CDs that had his whole catalog on it. And so if I had an hour, I'd go in there and just listen to some of his songs. All right, so I would go listen to Kim's catalog and just try to learn from him. We had another writer, Ron Harbin, that was having a lot of hits, and I would learn from him. But I just tried to become a sponge. I early. Oh, there it goes again. Have you still got me?
Yep, I got you.
Yeah. Um, I just tried to become a sponge and learn everything I could, and I would do things like because I didn't perform as a songwriter at that point. I would often write a song, and Kim would say, "Who would want to sing this every night?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a great story." And he'd be like, "Yeah, it's a great story, but no one wants to get up and say that." And one of the examples was I wrote a song called "The Shadow of a Man," and it was about a boy seeing his dad go into the house across the street and embrace the woman that lived there through the sheer curtains. And so his father became the shadow of a man because he knew he was cheating on his mom.
Wow.
And so I played that for Kim, and I wrote the heck out of the song, and he said that's maybe the best song I've ever heard that won't ever get cut. And he said, but imagine if Luke Bryan gets up every night and he's singing that song, everybody's going to think his dad cheated on his mom,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not going to do that to his dad. So people think the artist wrote those songs and they think that they're true to their experience and that kind of stuff. And so I had a big learning curve in that regard because I wasn't thinking like an artist. I wasn't going, I was just going, okay, this is a well crafted song, it's an interesting story, but I wasn't thinking about what would happen to an audience or to an artist if they cut that song.
So it's just basically the selling side of the songwriting business that was kind of lost on you at first, then, because like you're telling your stories and you think you're doing well, but I mean somebody above you has to sell that song in order for money to be made and to warrant your employment and all of that. That's I mean that's an interesting way of looking at things. So I mean after that first hit, you had what, a year left on your deal at that point. As a songwriter, what steps do you take after your first hit to kind of avoid complacency? Is there a thought process involved there, or are you just kind of riding the high?
No, I mean, Kim was very good at keeping me grounded and all that. He said, this is not going to last forever with this one song. And, right now you're a one hit wonder. So you got to keep putting in the work. And he really impressed on me, that, you just have to keep working on it. And later on, I think it was at my number one party for Let Me Down Easy, my publisher came up to me and said, congrats, what's next? And so I mean, I think I've just
So
been surrounded by people
during the party, it's on to
during the
the next.
party.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And at first I'm like, well, can't you just let me celebrate this? And I thought, well, you know what? Actually, I wrote that song a year prior to that party or something, and if there's not something coming next, I'm in trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought it's actually a valid question and a valid point to remind me just to keep working.
Yeah, it's fun. It's gonna be daunting. Like every time you have a hit, you're essentially back at square one. Like you're back to zero every single time. That's gonna be frightening, man. I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
And it having those hits opens some doors. The biggest thing that it does, I think, it people are listening to your songs more favorably. So instead of looking for a reason not to do it, they're looking for a reason for it to be great. Some maybe. But nobody's going to do me a favor. Billy Currington's not going to do me a favor just because I had a number one with him. It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be just as good or better the next time. And so there's no coasting through that kind of thing.
So how do you avoid? I mean, because human nature is we have success, then we try to replicate that success by essentially doing the same thing over and over again, repetition. You can't do that as a songwriter. You can't write the same song over and over again. So how do you avoid that?
Yeah. I think by I'm I get bored if I'm doing the same thing a lot. And so for me, just pushing myself to be like, you know what, if I'm feeling bored with what I'm writing, then other people are going to be bored with what I'm writing. So I've got to find ways to challenge myself. One of the things I do, I kind of have a stable of a handful of people that I write with all the time, and we're all always bringing in different thirds with us because that keeps it, Mark Nessler and I've written for 25 years every other Wednesday. So it's easy to be complacent with Mark because I know we can write something great every single time. But if it's just me and him, sometimes it kind of tends to fall into the same category that we've got a lot of songs already, so we try to mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also involved in I've got songs in several plays for musical theater. I'm building up a sync catalog that's not country. So I try to do lots of other things with my music other than just writing a country song every day, and that I think that makes it fresher. So I'll learn something in the sync world or the musical theater world. I can bring that into my country writing, and it shakes things up and challenges me.
And that's definitely one of the things that I admire most about you is your ability to go from one genre to another so seamlessly. Is there a change in your technique when you're going from one genre to another? Because I know that you're kind of self-admitted lyrical writer and kind of learn melody more later. I would imagine the lyrics don't change too much between genre. Maybe country's a little more I don't know, a little more vulnerable maybe, but are there differences between when you're writing one genre versus another?
Yeah, I think of genres as language overlays. So, like what we teach in Songtown is really communication. It's how to communicate with your music and your lyrics. So that remains the same everywhere. But if I'm writing a pop song, I know that there's probably less story and there's more repetition.
Right.
There has to be more little hooky things coming at you faster, so there may be 4 or 5 different hooky parts as opposed to just my chorus and country and that kind of stuff. And then I have to speak the language. So when I first started trying to write pop songs for sync, I would get the feedback, hey, this is a pop track, but the lyric still feels country, and so I wasn't speaking the language very well. So I had to kind of do some homework to learn the language of pop better, so that I could more authentically write it. And, that happens when people try to write country. I had a huge pop writer that's a friend of mine one day called me and said, hey, I've got a country idea I want to write with you. And I'm like, okay, that'll be great, and his idea was cow patty. And I'm like, that's not quite where things are, what I mean? I said, I don't really know of any artists singing about cow poop. And he was like, well, maybe I should stick to pop, But his version of country was the show Hee Haw. And so that, like corny, very, very rural kind of image was what he had. So he wasn't up to date on the language of country.
So that's cool how you put that. You had to learn the language of a different genre. That's amazing. So, I mean, speaking of other genres, I got to know the story behind a #1 Asian song of the year, a song called Bounce. Tell us about this song, Marty.
Well, I went to Sweden to a songwriting camp. My publisher at the time sent me over there to write at this camp. And we were actually we wrote that song thinking maybe it would be a Bounce dryer sheet commercial.
That's great.
And it was just it was a bouncy track, and it was, kind of real lighthearted, fun lyric. And I wrote it with 2 Swedish guys, and I didn't think much of it. We were pitching it, they were pitching it, and then one day I got a call, and they said, hey, this guy in Korea that was the biggest artist in Korea, his wife died, and he decided he was going to retire and never sing again. and he decided that after 10 years that he was going to do a comeback album, and he picked your song. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
great, which song? And they're like, Bounce. And I'm like, the Dryer Sheet song. you
That's
know
great.
um, but they changed it, and it was really like they changed it to the verses. If you look at the interpretation from Korean to back to English, it's kind of sad song.
Mm.
um, but anyway, it was kind of the equivalent of if Paul McCartney had retired and then 10 years later he comes back. And so somehow those Swedish publishers got the song to his camp, and they loved the song, and so it became his first ever single after 10 years of retirement, and went on to become Asian Song of the Year, South Korean Song of the Year. It was in every Kia bought in South Korea for a while. When you turned it on, it would play the song.
Wow.
So it was crazy.
Yeah, and the song's really cool too. I listened to it today for the first time. Usually, I'll like the last 2 hours before an interview, I'm just kind of my research is listening to music. It's a tough gig, truly. Uh,
Horrible.
yeah, it is
Horrible.
horrible. So, yeah, that brings me to Songtown, which is kind of the reason why you and I met. Now, we haven't met in person, but virtually met. I've been a member of Songtown for a while, even though I'm not a songwriter. I am a huge songwriting fan. So, being a member of the community that you've built with Clay is just a huge honor. But it's a major part of what you've been doing nowadays. And so, first of all, tell us about Songtown. What is it exactly, and what kind of awesome work are you guys doing with it?
Well, Clay and I were co-writers. Our publishers were best friends, and so they connected us years ago. And in 2012, I believe, we were going to write one day, and we went to get coffee, and we were talking about some people we had just met that had been ripped off in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one woman had come from California, this person who was a shady publisher told her he loved two of her songs, that she was amazing, and for the low, low price of $5,000, he would take all her publishing and do two demos of her songs. So she paid the man $5,000, gave him all her publishing, and he gave her two crappy demos, which we later found out he paid $300 for because we found out who did them.
Mm.
So she paid the man to get ripped off, and we were, Clay and I were just going, why do people do that stuff, And we started researching what was available online, and there really wasn't anything other than that hyped up, get your songs in front of Nashville producers kind of stuff. And so Clay jokingly said, we should start a community, and just our motto will be, your songs suck, but we can tell you how to make them better. And he was like, how do you think that is for a business model? I'm like, I don't know.
It's doing well
But
so far.
yeah. So we started doing a daily blog on Facebook. We created a Songtown Facebook page, started doing a daily blog, and we did daily blogs for 2 years. So we had over 700 blogs that we wrote. And we would write about stuff like how not to get ripped off in Nashville, how much a demo should cost, how that whole thing works, how publishing works, and that kind of stuff. And as we built that community, people started saying, you guys should teach classes. So we did an online class on Zoom, and it went well and sold out, and we're like, okay, maybe, we can do something with this. So that led us to creating the website and all the video content that's on there. We have about 800 hours of video content, and we focus on community coaching and connection. So we try to help people, especially people that are not in a music center, connect with other people to co-write. We try to help people connect with publishers. We've helped about 16 people now get staff writing deals. One of our the artist Gail and Sarah Davis, who was one of the writers on ABCD EFU, met in Songtown at a Songtown event, and then were nominated for the Grammy for Song of the Year for all genres last year. So we've had a lot of great writers come through Songtown.
Well, it always impressed me for one singular reason, and that is, I mean, the music business, in my experience, is kind of like finding a really good fishing spot. Like, nobody wants to share that fishing spot with other people. So, like, you trying to help other artists, songwriters, etc., to try to avoid the pitfalls of the slimy side of Nashville, which will probably always exist, sadly, is kind of like sharing your good fishing spot with other people, because there's a lot of competition in Nashville amongst songwriters and artists and things like that. And so some secret you might have to your success could help somebody else essentially steal your job. So that always impressed me from you and Clay. Did you like ever even think of that when you were first starting? Probably not, I would imagine.
I mean, I've never really come from that scarcity mindset that that if somebody else gets something, it's taking it away from me. So I've never really felt that way. And one of the first things I did was go to an NSAI song camp, and there was a writer there that had written some big hits, and he said, "I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to steal my job, because I don't think you'll do it. I don't think you'll work hard enough to do it." And that always stuck with me. It's like, if I can teach somebody and they want to work as hard as I've worked, I want them to succeed. And if they get on an album I was trying to get on and I don't, that's fine. I feel like there's enough for all of us, and that if I'm helping people, that'll come back to me somehow.
I love that. I love that so much. So, 2024, we're at 10, 12 years from the creation of Songtown. What's the current goal right now for y'all with the community?
We're trying to, one of the things we have fought for our whole existence has been that it's only a country songwriting site. So, which it's not. Like I said, earlier, we teach most of what we teach is how to communicate with your songs. So we've got like Nash Overstreet, who's in Hot Shell Ray, is doing a lot of pop live lessons for us these days. We've got several other people doing pop stuff. I've become really involved in musical theater, so we're adding a lot of musical theater content, a lot of sync content. So we're just trying to beef up areas other than country, so that because we are in Nashville, people perceive, oh, that must just be a country songwriting site.
And how much
So
of that is
that's
just
our
kind
current.
of hitting the bricks and trying to get people involved from outside of the genre, so to speak, like actually reaching out to people to get them involved? Is there a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, and I know, like, Nash's dad, Paul Overstreet's an old friend of mine, and we've had a lot of stuff together, and so that was an easy one to find him. And then, but yeah, we just, through the 25 years of doing this, Clay and I both know a lot of different people in a lot of different genres, and we found, most people are are willing to help. We've had a few people that are like, no, I don't really want to tell my secrets or something like that, but not many.
No, it's my fishing spot.
That's right.
So, I'd be remiss without talking about the I believe it's your biggest cut, which was Must Be Doing Something Right. I would love to hear the story behind not only that song but the other number one that Billy Currington also released, Let Me Down Easy. Which song came first, and did the second song, do you feel, come to be with the same artist because of the first?
Probably. I mean, it probably helped. Must Be Doing Something Right was first. And Billy and I had written some together. And I remember one day we had written, and he was waiting on a ride or something. And so we were sitting on the curb out by my publishing company. And he was talking about how he was worried he was going to lose his record deal. And I was worried I was going to lose my writing deal because I had not had a hit at this new company. And about 3 weeks later, Jason Matthews and I wrote Must Be Doing Something Right, which became first number one for Billy, first number one for me, and for Jason. But the story was, Jason and I had been writing. Uh, we had written one day and not gotten a lot done with this song idea we were working on, and so this was the second day, and we were really frustrated about by lunchtime. So we went to lunch, and on the way back from lunch, Jason said, "Do you like that song we're working on?" And I said, "No, but I thought you liked it." He said, "I don't like it." And so we were like, "We've been working for 2 days on a song nobody likes." So Jason said, "Let's just write something people can make out to." And I said, "Well, like, what are you thinking?" And he starts singing, "Woman is a mystery, man just can't understand." And we just took off and we wrote that song in about an hour and a half, I guess.
Wow. So were you the
And
lyrics
then
and he was the melody on that, or did you kind of share on that?
we shared it, but he was predominantly melody and I was predominantly lyric. And we never pitched that song to anybody but Billy. So we pitched it to Billy, just the work tape, honestly, that Jason made. Jason's a great performer, but he had just sung it into GarageBand, and so we pitched that, and they put it on hold and cut it from the work tape. And so then Let Me Down Easy, I was writing with Mark Nessler, and Mark had some cuts with Billy. I had Must Be Doing Something Right, and we knew Billy was looking for to finish out his record. So we were like, let's get together tomorrow, try to write something for Billy. And two interesting things happened that day. I had a brand new guitar, and it was a nylon string guitar, and Mark's a great guitar player. So I took this guitar in, and he was like, "Oh my goodness, let me see that." So he picks up that guitar, and the first thing he played was the intro lick to Let Me Down Easy.
Wow.
And and then he was like, why don't we call Jennifer Hanson to come write this with us? Because we were
Oh my
real excited
gosh.
about it. And the on that day, they were divorcing each other, and I was going through a horrible divorce. So all three of us are going through a really bad divorce. They were divorcing each other, and we wrote a love song that went number one. So
Wow.
truth is
So
stranger than fiction.
I'll keep it real. I did not know Jennifer Hanson was part of that song. That's very interesting. Boy, is she a fantastic artist in her own right.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. So yeah, great stories, man. So one thing I'd love to hear is, I mean, obviously, but well, you know what you mentioned earlier. Just let me kind of rewind a bit about not being a performing songwriter. I would love to hear what struggles you might have faced as a songwriter who wasn't performing. Because in Nashville, a lot of songwriters will hit the Bluebirds and the local and all of the different venues there. I imagine that would help with your craft. But if you're not performing, how does that, like? Did you struggle because of that? Looking back at it.
I think the biggest struggle was what I mentioned earlier about just not having a good grasp on the artist kind of mindset, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but I came to the conclusion early on that I didn't perform my songs well enough to sell them, and I had a lot of anxiety about it, and that kind of stuff. So I wasn't having fun. I wasn't selling my songs, I didn't think. And so I'm like, you know what? Even though the conventional wisdom is in Nashville is you need to play out, go to shows and that kind of stuff. I would go to shows, but I didn't. I just stopped playing them. And then once I had some hits, I learned how to, I could really practice on those songs and learn how to play them and do a better job with it. But I wasn't. I felt like in a way I was hurting myself by performing my songs badly at a
I
show.
understand. I understand, but that's sometimes that's how you work out the kinks and see the reaction to something that you put together. I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for a legitimate amount of time, really long time. Let's be honest. How has your music and/or style changed since you first started?
Mm. I think in the beginning I was probably chasing trends a lot more. Um, and going back to the conventional wisdom, my publishers all through the years would say, need more up tempo from you. We need more up tempo, fun, positive songs. And I just wasn't great at that. And I still don't think I am. In fact, those gold and platinum records behind me, I don't. Almost none of those are from up tempo songs. And so I finally, decided if I'm going to succeed, it's going to be writing what I love and what I do well, not chasing what somebody else thinks I should do. So consequently, I've got a lot of love songs. I kind of have a lot of songs in one vein. But I think I don't know that I've changed a lot other than I'm writing a lot better songs. I hope every day I'm writing better than I did the day before. But I haven't fundamentally changed a whole lot. Songtown has, by mentoring and teaching other people, I have learned a lot because I've had to figure out how to put into words to communicate to somebody what I'm doing. So I think I have a lot better grasp of being intentional with what I'm doing now, and targeting artists and all that kind of stuff. So I think I do a lot better job of getting in the ballpark if I've got a target that I'm trying to hit.
And so basically what you're talking about there is if you have an artist in mind, say Billy Currington, you're going to try to form a song around what you think that the strengths of that artist are. So you're writing specifically for a certain person. Is that
Yeah.
something that you've learned to do better over the years?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the things through Songtown that I've learned is that each artist does three or four different things generally. So, like a Carrie Underwood will sing sappy ballads that show off her range. She will sing story songs, and then she will sing man bashing songs. That's pretty much what she does. And so, learning those different like archetypes or lanes that each artist does, when I'm writing, I'm not only targeting the artist, I'm targeting the particular archetype that that I'm after. So, in Carrie's case, years ago, I did some research on her, and I discovered that she wrote all the ballads, she wrote all the stories. She did not write any of the man bashing songs in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
like before he cheats. And so I was writing with somebody that wrote for 19 Management, which is connected to her. And I said, hey, let's write a man bashing song because that's what she doesn't write. So we not only targeted Carrie, we targeted that particular lane. So that's what I do with every artist. If I may be writing for Kenny Chesney and I'm thinking maybe it's a big song about life, some big wise song about life, or maybe it's a song about a summer romance, or maybe it's a song about the beach lifestyle kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
But I'm targeting a particular lane or archetype, and that's been really really beneficial to me.
So when you're within your songwriting deal, how much of your time is spent targeting a specific artist? Is there time invested in that specifically, or are your publishers looking for more of an open ended song that the song pluggers can plug to any artist?
Well, when I'm writing for Kenny, I don't write it where Kenny's the only guy who could do it. Like I'm not talking
Right.
about his Blue Chair Bay rum or things that are so specific. So I'm keeping it where we have other pitches for it as well, even though I'm targeting. So what I did years ago, I picked four or five artists that I really loved that cut outside songs, and I just focus on those artists, and those are Blake Shelton, Tim McGraw, Kenny Chesney, Billy Currington, and Keith Urban. And so that allows me to just focus on those guys. So I can do a lot of research on them. I can listen to interviews, kind of figure out where their head is. And I haven't gotten a Keith Urban or a Tim McGraw yet. I'm still working on those, but I've gotten cuts with all those others.
Yeah, incredible stuff, man. I love to hear stuff like this. Just the nuts and bolts of songwriting. It's not as glamorous as people think. There's a lot of work involved in it, and a lot of luck as well. To be fair, um,
Yeah.
So fast forward to today, and obviously you're a mentor, you're a songwriting coach, things like that. What is your best advice if an aspiring songwriter came up to you, and you can't say don't do it? That's not your advice, okay? If an aspiring songwriter comes up to you and says, "I want to make a living out of this," what is your best advice? And you can't say don't do it.
Oh no, I've had people call me and say, "Can you talk my son out of being a songwriter?" And I'm like, "No, I will talk to your son, but I will not talk about his." I mean, no, I mean this songwriting has been a dream come true for me, and is the best thing I ever did professionally. And so I'm very positive when people come up to me and say they want to do it. But my best advice is always, it's going to take longer than you think it's going to take, and don't quit.
Hmm.
If it feeds your soul to do it, don't quit. And in Songtown, I'll have people come to me and say, I've been trying this for 2 years. I haven't made any money. I think I may just go back to doing something else. And I'll say, well, does songwriting feed your soul? And they're like, yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. And I'm like, so because you're not making any money yet, you're going to quit your favorite thing to do? And so I really just encourage people to go, I have to be in this for the long haul. It's going to take me, it took me, like I said, about 6 years before I was making any money at it. And so there was a lot of frustration along the way and a lot of doubt about whether I could do it. But the only people that win are the people that stay in it. And I saw a quote the other day that said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And I thought that really applies to songwriting. I mean, most of us think we're great. I thought I had 20 or so songs that were great when I got my first publishing deal, and my publisher didn't like any of them.
Hmm.
And he told me, if he said, write for me for a year, and if you still think those songs are great, we'll pitch them. And so at the end of that year, we sat down and listened to those songs, and I'm like, why did you sign me? Those are horrible. But that it's to that point. You don't have to be great to start, and if you get feedback that you're not great yet, that just means you still got work to do.
Always learn, right? You just got to keep learning.
Yeah.
Yep, I love that. So, new thing that you're doing, I saw this come across my timeline recently, and I wanted to hear you talk about it. Lonely Tuesday music. What does this entail?
Well, that's in the sync world. I have developed these teams, so it would be me and a producer or track person, and then a singer. And we're just every time we write, we're trying to create music for TV and movies, advertisement, that kind of stuff. So Kyle Jackson Ratchke, that I started Lonely Tuesday with, we've probably got 30 or 40 songs together now that are being pitched. I've got two sync reps that are working my catalog, and so we just decided to kind of make it official, do a website. We're going to start releasing some music. But that's all music that we've been writing for sync.
Still trying to get that bounce song into the right hands, right?
Yeah.
So, last question. I appreciate your time, Marty, once again, in sitting here with me for this episode. And this is a lot of times this can be the hardest question of the show. Who do you think you are? Who is Marty Dotson to you?
Mm. Um, I I feel like I'm a person that's passionate about life, about the people I love. I'm passionate about music. I love my work. My wife will sometimes go like, "Why do you want to work sometimes on the weekend?" I'm like, "Because I love it. Don't feel like work. Just creating things." And I'm passionate about um, equality and rights for other people. So I've been involved in some things to kind of um, lobby, I guess, for um, people maybe that don't have a voice, because I feel like I've been given a platform to maybe make a difference with some things. So
And definitely very big inspiration of mine there as well. I'm very blessed to be your friend on Facebook, to be able to follow and listen to some of the words of equality that you have for other people. Your kindness for other human beings is inspirational as well. So if people are hearing about Marty Dodson for the first time, first of all, where the hell have you been? But where can people follow along with everything you have going on? And we'll make sure all of the stuff is in the description down below for people to follow.
Um, I have a Facebook page called Marty Dodson Songwriter. Instagram is at Marty D Songs. Those are the most common places to find me. Songtown, I'm in Songtown a lot.
And
I
what's
guess
the
those
website
would
for
be the big ones.
Songtown? What's the official address?
Just www.songtown.com.
There we go. So we'll make sure that's down in the description. If you were selling Songtown to people, what would you tell them? Why is it that they should become a member of Songtown?
Because we can help you write better songs, and that's our goal. Look at it like a golf pro. Not everybody that the golf pro teaches is going to become a pro themselves, but they're going to enjoy golf more. And that's kind of our goal with Songtown is we know some of the people are going to succeed at a high level like Sarah and Gail did with ABCDEFU. Other people are just going to enjoy their songwriting more, and they're going to play songs for their family that get a better response, or that at a coffee shop and that kind of stuff. So, if you want to get your songs, learn how to make your craft better, we're the place for you. We're also the place that'll tell you the truth. So we don't sugarcoat things. If things are not ready, we tell people. But that means when we tell you it's great, we think it's great.
And the community is second to none. Just so many songwriters all across the world, and all pulling for each other, tugging the rope in the same direction, from what I can tell. And sometimes that's what you need, man. You just need that camaraderie and encouragement, really, if you're having a bad day or whatever and you want to give up. Sometimes just having that ear available to you is the price of admission, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Marty, once again, man, thank you for your time. I can't believe I had you on the show. I appreciate it very much. It's been a huge honor of mine to have you here.
Thank you. Grateful to be here.
Hey everybody, it's me, Jarrett, from your favorite band, Bowling for Soup. Thank you for tuning in to the 10 Minutes with Boston Chris podcast.
Man, what a great conversation with a great songwriter and another amazing human being. Kindness is kind of the going rate here on the show. Just about everybody we've had on the show has been one of the most kind people I've ever met in my life. And we can learn a lot from a lot of these folks that we've had as guests on the show. So super excited to be able to sit down and pick the brain of some of the most talented people on the planet. And I thank you guys for coming along on the journey. Make sure, again, to follow everything Marty has going on. Go to songtown.com and become a member there if you're a songwriter or not, just to support the community. And again, you can follow along with everything we have going on. We're on both Spotify and YouTube. Wherever you're listening, hit that like button, subscribe, follow, do all of the things. And we'll catch you down the road.